listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box, where you get the inside scoop on the steps action takers and decision makers take to align their purpose to their principles and achieve their goals in business and life. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hi there, everybody. This is Sarah. Welcome back to the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a podcast all about shedding our limiting labels and beliefs so that we can all shine our lights brightly into the world and actually have a great life and lift those others around us up along the way. This week, we are joined by Holli and Jeanna. Now, Holli and Jeanna are hosts of the LOA Uncorked Podcast, and they have been inseparable best friends forever since they found each other in 2004. They work together in corporate America. That's not where they are right now. They've had changes over the last 18 years. Is my math right? 18 years. Okay. But out of their thirst to create magic within a community and their love for the limelight, that podcast was born in 2018. And Holli and Jeanna are all about making conscious creation a lifestyle and about learning and sharing how we can all experience and express ourselves fully in our authenticity and personal power. So those listeners to this podcast know we're all about that. And that's one of the reasons I'm super excited to talk with these gals today. They love to experiment with every inspiring philosophy, viewpoint, or technique, or life hack, as they like to say. And at the same time, they are fully in their element, sharing their own wisdom and creation adventures with the world. They're both students and teachers in their podcast episodes, absolutely passionate about empowering their listeners to learn fully their own lives, to live fully their own lives along with them. So you might be surprised to learn they are both C-suite corporate executives, both have been C-suite corporate executives. But let's throw in astrologer and life coach. So interesting little mix there, ladies. So now with that, I'd like to welcome you both formally to the podcast. Hi, Holli. Hi, Jeanna.
Hi, Sarah. Woo-hoo. We're so happy to be with you and your audience today on No Labels, No Limits. Love the title.
Yes.
Love everything you're doing. We're just thrilled to be here.
Well, that makes a threesome of us. Yeah. I was telling Holli and Jeanna before we started, I was on my walk thinking about them, and I'd read about them and done some research, and I just got getting more and more excited because they're out of the box, which of course we love, and they have such great wisdom. But I want to start asking off a question, and that is to each of you, what is your definition of success today? It may have been different before, but how do you define success today?
Well, for me, it's living in my joy is success. And so that doesn't mean that there aren't ripples, but I feel like standing and living in your joy and having fun when you're doing it is the ultimate success. And yes, it has changed over the years.
Yes,
so
for sure.
Go ahead, Jeanna.
So I would say, for me, it's authenticity. And I think, one of the things that I always, I kind of grew up with what society said success looked like, right? So it was a good job and good money and, happy family and, the picket fence and all the things. That was, I think what I had in mind for success. And I really feel like as I have grown and watched others around me and had some great examples like Holli in my life, really success is knowing deeply who you are and standing in who you are and showing up as who you are in every situation. And for some of us, that's harder to do. Mm-hmm. And yet, I've learned very, very quickly in the last 3 years during our podcast is, those people who are authentically who they are and just present and bring all of their skills and abilities and talents and perspective to bear are pure magic to be around. And I think if we're not doing that, and if I'm not doing that, I'm not only cheating myself, but I'm cheating everyone around me.
Agreed. Totally agree. So when you say it's harder for some folks than others, Jeanna, to live in their authenticity, Has there been a pattern or something the two of you have observed about the difference either in personality or background that makes it harder for people to be who they truly are at their core?
Well, I mean, I have some thoughts, but go ahead, Holli.
Well, I think it's two things for me. Is one is I think we don't spend enough time getting to know who we are. And we really like that we look at tools and we spend time thinking about who we are, time connecting with ourselves. So I like that you do the Enneagram, Sarah, and I think that's a beautiful tool. We use astrology, you mentioned that, to really know and have compassion for yourself. And really understanding that so that you can step into who you are and get rid of all the noise is important. And then I forgot the other thing, Jeanna.
I'm sure, listen, she will come back to it. Trust me, she'll remember. But I'll for me, it's always been a fear-based trend around, wanting to be liked, wanting to do well, wanting to some of those more, traditional societal success factors, right? Versus just putting that aside and really, really making sure that you love yourself and you are good with yourself, and then the rest will take care of itself, right? And so that's what I would say with regard to, a trait that I have seen for myself and in others too, where that authenticity is a little harder to prioritize and get in touch with.
And thank you, Jeanna. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say about myself is that I prided myself not on that part of it, but I prided myself on being a chameleon. And I didn't do it to please people. I did it to be quote unquote successful.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And so I'm like, what does Sarah need today? I'm going to give it to her. And I'm going to give it to her 5,000 times over, and I'm going to be successful, And so I prided myself in that. That means I'm going to contort and I'm going to be Gumby. Okay. But I can do it. And I'm so proud of myself. There was this pride of like, this is my superpower. And I'm not saying that isn't a superpower. Like oftentimes, even the pleasing. So the beautiful thing about that is that, you're intuitive, what people need, like there's a beauty.
You care what people think.
You care. And there's a beauty to how that drives you. And then you can take it the farther, just like chameleon there's a beauty to being able to meet what is needed, but to not contort yourself into something that's not authentic or real to you probably is going too far. So there's always that polarization.
Sure. Well, and don't you think it's a motivation driven thing? So like Jeanna, you said about wanting the fear to not feel frightened in whatever realm, or to feel like you've contributed and that you're important, Holli, to your point of like being able like, okay, I can do this. And I mean, our motivations, to your point, if you're aware, it's easier to identify them, right? But you're right. You can go too much and then you're not living out of who you are, but to get something.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And you talked a lot about, in the beginning about our relationship, our friendship, and how long that is, and how, it's truly a gift anytime any of us have a long-standing friendship. Those are not easy to come by. And this relationship, this friendship has felt, I feel like I've known Holli forever. I feel like she's part of family. I feel like I've known her forever. And I did from very, very beginning. So
let's start. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you way back in 2004 when you met in corporate America. What initially drew you to one another? Like, was it you walked in a room and went, oh, that's my sister? Or was there something else that happened and you went, oh.
No, it's wow. Go, Jeanna.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So listen, I would rather tell this story than Holli, because she's going to complain about me and I really don't appreciate it.
I will.
So I'm the head of HR and she was the head of finance, their CFO. And so we naturally in our worked together quite often, but I actually hired Holli. I was the recruiter at the time and I was working with our, at the time, CFO to hire Holli. and I had the phone interview with her. This was the first of 6 interviews. This is part of the complaining that Holli does. 6 interviews that we did. The first was a phone interview with just me. And that conversation, I felt like she was the most unusual finance person I've ever, and I had recruited for years and years and years, most unusual finance person I've ever talked to. She just, this effervescence, this personality, this human connectedness. I mean, we might've talked about numbers. I'm not sure actually, but probably not. I mean, but just someone I could absolutely see myself chatting with any day of the week. Like, it was just this instant on that phone call. And then we walked through this arduous, terrible process that Holli always complains about, how long it was before we finally offered a job to her. And then we didn't work together for all that often for the first year or two. We were kind of in different roles. And then as people changed within the HR team and within finance, we stepped into leadership roles together. And I remember specifically, there was one meeting we were having about the performance of the organization. And we were in there with the rest of the business, and we're for an engineering firm. So the rest of the technical staff. And we were talking about how we're going to, improve business performance. And we were getting some feedback from a consultant. And there was a moment where, because obviously some of it's the billable time and a lot of it's just expenses and overhead, which is our side of the house. And we just sort of locked eyes, and I could tell we're both wickedly competitive. We want to do really well. We want to be successful. And we're like, now we have we were in charge enough to really make some monumental changes on the corporate side of the house together and in real partnership along the way. That was the first of, a good 12 years of real tight partnership.
I think it's trust too. I mean, I think that we were developing trust over time that helped us. And then we could sort of use our, what I'm going to call law of attraction practices. That's how that whole thing started, because we would launch big projects together. We'd go in the boardroom together. And, engineering is really, really probably the opposite side of the brain, right? And so we never said what we were doing, but we worked together so that trust was built, and then we worked together. But we definitely had an instant attraction when we chatted, because we're both like,
stylistically very similar.
But it took time to establish that trust.
So you talk about creating meaningful experiences. So you go in the boardroom and you're surreptitiously including law of attraction with engineers. Now, I've done strategic planning in a group of mix from engineers in the same room. It's a training more than anything, training social workers, engineers, and public agencies, right? I love the engineers because they had everything mapped out to the T, right?
Yes.
But it was a little harder for them to step back and go on the kind of the conceptual without the details. So I'm curious how the impact was for you of doing that. Like, even though you weren't calling it that, what did you notice in them, or did they notice in themselves?
So good.
Well, that's such a great question. And so what we notice, and I mean, this is like the sneak attack. Okay. This is the LOA sneak attack, because we believe everything is energy. And so, and most of our organization was really about influence. It wasn't about power, even though I had a very powerful position. I couldn't come in and hit you with a club and say, go do this. I mean, it was all about influence and bringing people along.
My role.
Same for her.
Yeah.
And so we know everything's energy. So we would drive in Seattle. We're in Seattle. And so it would be a 2-hour commute one way to get there, and we'd be chatting. And so we would set an intention for the meeting. So I know that a lot of us set intentions every day, which we definitely believe in, but we would set an intention for the meeting. And it would be, so we're trying to move energy. We are energy. So we'd set an intention for the meeting, particularly if it's contentious or there's something. And then I would layer on top of that for being of service to the collective. And so I would intentionally set an intention, And then on top of that, my voice be of service. We would ground ourselves before. So what does that mean? We'd make sure we're in our body. We'd make sure that there's no, you know how you get triggered. We're not going to get triggered in this meeting, little girl, or whatever the trigger is, I'm not enough. We're not going to do that. So we were very conscious of how we showed up. Now, for me in the boardroom, this may sound a little crazy. Okay. But what I would do, particularly when I was new to one of the more powerful positions, I would bring in an entourage of angels standing by my side around the boardroom. And I would have them watch over me, and I would visualize them being there with me and supporting me as I'm on this journey. And I'm going to tell you, every single time we would do this, we could feel energy changing. And so we changed, and it's not manipulation because we were serving the highest good of the collective. It wasn't our personal highest good.
Right. It was the vibration of that room evolved with some extra help and intention setting and really focused goal setting that was, like Holli said, in service to the collective.
Mm-hmm. So did you notice other people starting to shift in their attitudes or their response to you when you came with your intention and you came in with your entourage? And by the way, I don't think that's being sneaky at all. I mean, we all have that available to us, whether we choose to use it or not.
Yeah. We do.
So, and if it's not available, if we weren't supposed to connect, we wouldn't be available. It wouldn't be available.
Right.
No, I love that. We did see people change and move. And I'll give you a little story. When Jeanna first hired me, we had an executive that I had to work with. I prided myself on being a chameleon back then. So there was no executive. I worked with every president of global companies and listen, we're like this. And this executive made me just want to pull my hair out. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he was extra detailed. And I had all this built up resentment towards him.
Yeah.
Like, every little thing, if there wasn't a period on a communication that went out by me or my staff, I would get a call from him. I mean, he was incessantly crazy. Okay. And that was my story. And I think he was one of my best teachers because it took me a little while, not a huge while, but it took me a little while to go, this is my problem. He wants over communication. He's a perfectionist and he's, and I was like, wait a second, over
achiever.
Over communication is a judgment.
Oh, yeah.
And, we are about the only diet we approve is the judgment-free one. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's one of our principles. Right. And so I'm like, so that's not good. And I looked at all these triggers and it was all about me. It wasn't about him. And so what I did was I dropped all that, let go of all my judgments, sent him love. I sent him love. We became like this. Mm-hmm. It changed the whole entire frequency. That's what people don't. Really, and it doesn't mean that we all show up with our own stuff. His own stuff was like, I don't feel comfortable if everything isn't perfect. And I know he was having internal anxiety, which presented itself my direction. We became the best of partners until he left. And he was a great teacher for me because when something is triggering you, it's not about the other person. It's always about you.
Isn't that a little humbling to when you learn that you're going, well, that could be my problem. Whereas my husband just told one of his friends who was going on a rant, and this person, that person, he goes, my experience is if everybody else is an ass, it's probably your problem.
Yeah.
And so the guy was with his wife and his wife busted up laughing. And she says, I think that's really insightful. But it's true. It's like, we've got to drop that stuff because it's not about, and when you learn to go, okay, it's super uncomfortable. Oh, yeah. But there's an opportunity here. What is it?
Absolutely.
Well, Holli, Holli was just such a great teacher for me. And I'm hoping that, the lesson plan is, smaller day by day, but the lesson plan back in the day for me was actually quite large.
Mine too.
She was committed to seeing me evolve.
We're on the journey.
Yeah. She bullied me on the journey with her, I think. So when we were in the car on the way to Seattle, those long drives, I mean, sometimes they felt like 4 hours because she was like, listen, Jeanna, that issue with that person is not about them. That is a you thing. I go, what do you mean? They're the one, he's the one doing it. And it's absolutely him thing. And she's no, actually, no, it's not about him. You just need to let it go, show up as yourself, do your thing, do it well. I'm going to guarantee you all this will stop. And sure enough, she was dead on right.
Yeah.
The issues I had with him were not his, they are mine.
Yeah. And he's not even aware that you have issues with him or care. It's like, we're all in our own thing going on. We're going, well, if they've got a problem with me, they might want to mention it because otherwise I'm not thinking about them.
Right. Exactly right.
I know you guys are super passionate about conscious creation and living intentionally. So let's talk about that a bit, if we would, because I know you have ways for people to step towards joy. Holli, you talked about that being important. And when people talk about living in joy, I think some of the questions I hear come up or are asked are like, how do you do that? How do you even know what joy is? If you don't know yourself, that might be part of it, but why aren't our dreams manifesting?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So that is, I love this question.
This is the big question. That's the headliner question in Law of Attraction, right?
It is. And we'll go broad and get a little more detailed, but so you're right. Knowing yourself is really important, using tools, for sure. That is a big part of it. The other part that I think, and this is like, you're a strategic consultant, this, yes. Okay. We do this in business, but we don't do it for ourselves. We need to make sure we know what our core values are. And so it's like, how do you find joy when you don't know what your core values are that will bring you joy? And so we always say, go through an exercise of get it down to 5. Don't judge them again. Don't judge what they are and, the essence of what they are. And then as you live life, you need to go back through and look and say, okay, well, is my job aligned with my core values? Is going to the pool party tonight aligned with my core? Do I want to do it? Or am I just saying, I'll go? Right. So some of that is just foundational because in order to manifest, there is a vibration frequency that you need to be in more often. Doesn't mean we stay in it. Doesn't mean it's false. We can't be upset, but there's neutrality, and then there's happiness and joy. And one of the things that we really talk about, you talk about this too, Sarah, is that you start with gratitude. So every day, we start with gratitude and then we add on creations. So we stack it. Because as you're having your gratitude, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I do them at night. I do it in the morning. And people set their intentions in the morning. I know you do that. You've said, and Jeanna, we do that, but we also sit there and go through at least 5 things. And then you can feel your energy level when you think about, oh, I'm so thankful for my dog and our walk today, which you talked about. And I'm excited for the day. And thank God I'm doing this podcast, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can feel that heighten, and then bam, you hit it with some creations. And so I always do 5. And so those creations, for me, I mix long and short term so I can feel good about some of the short term. So I put funny things in there. And so for example, Jeanna and I, we went on a trip, and I always put my intention for the trip. I always say my bags show up and, travel, the basics.
She's like a little vision board almost.
Yeah. And
what she wants
and how we want to feel.
Yeah.
So part of it, I think, isn't, and our example is going to highlight this, is just that part of it is it's the feeling I want to have. And so and that I want to experience with her. So we go on a trip to Florida.
And she does not share this with me, by the way.
I didn't share it. Okay. And so I put in
Which is a flaw in the plan.
It's not a flaw.
Gina, would you have liked to know what her plans for you were?
I do, actually. I know. But she looks all mischievous. It's
I know.
scary,
And I'm
right?
all excited. And I don't tell her that. I put a clown. We hate clowns.
Yes, clowns.
We say clowns are just, we say shame and guilt. It's another one of our principles. Shame and guilt is just clown shit. Nobody needs it. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to see it. Okay. So
where it needs to go. It just needs to go. Just like clowns need to go.
I'm sorry, clowns, you need to rebrand.
They need to go.
Anyway, they need to rebrand themselves. They need to go.
Yep.
Anyway, so I put in my manifestation, the feelings we wanted to have. And I said, I want to see a clown.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to tell her because then I wanted to just sit back in the bar on the way home and revel in the clown.
Because at the end of the trip, that's when she usually pulls up and says, let's see how we did.
Let's check them off.
Let's check them off.
So it was her intention, but let's see how we did on my end.
Right. I'm an active partner in this, but I have no idea what we're trying to do.
Well, it does work though.
I'm needy. I force her to be with me. And so as we're coming back, I was like, shit, where was can I say that? I'm like, shoot, where's the clown?
It's fine with me.
The clown. And so I'm revealing the list and she's like, Holly, we did get a clown. So in my vision, it's a painted face. So again, with the universe, with God, whatever you think is delivering things to you, I felt I was going to get a clown with a face, the kind that we say, no, rebrand.
Yes.
And what we got was something that was different. She goes, we got our clown, Holly. Don't you remember X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, well, that didn't show up how I wanted it to.
But it was very much a clown.
Yeah. And so the universe is funny.
Yeah.
And you can play with it. And so you're
funny, haha, not funny like a clown.
Yeah,
right.
Funny, haha.
Exactly.
And it wants to stretch your belief and
Yeah.
whatever you're asking for, to be open to having it show up in a better way because it knows better than us. It knew we don't even like clowns. Why would I want to manifest one?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's just silliness. The universe is like, you're silly. We're going to give you something else. And then I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't get it. So
we got an undercover clown.
And so when we're walking towards our joy, you see we're having fun. So that's an element of it. Like, you have to play with the universe and have fun. And I'm talking a lot, Jeanna. I'm going to let you add.
Well, and I think the story is perfect. Like, the back to your question around, what happens if what I'm asking for isn't manifest? I think a lot of people miss the fact it was, because it doesn't come forward in the way that they had in mind, right? Holly always says, I want a billboard. I want my request to what I'm manifesting to show up on a billboard, like
with her name on it, right? Holly, this is yours.
Yes, exactly. Like lights around it and dry ice and lasers. I mean, that's what she wants. But oftentimes it's just a little breadcrumb that you could easily miss along the way. And if you're not just really being, I think there's a level, talking about our friendship, it's a level of trust in the universe that there is this give and take, and it will show up. And be curious and aware enough to be looking for it, because it will show up. May not have thought about the individual that I was the undercover clown, had I known we were looking for one. But when she said it, and I go, why did you want that? She goes, oh, because they're funny and they're big and they're loud and they're funny and I just thought that'd be fun. And I'm like, okay, well, you remember so-and-so on this trip, totally clown. I mean, 100% clown. So, it's just, you just could easily miss it along the way. And I think that's the part that, has been so fascinating for me. I grew up in a household that had a great deal of metaphysical practices. My dad was really into, feng shui and I Ching and, just really unique for my vintage, his vintage and his background. And so, and then I kind of put that all on hold, and Holly has brought it back to me in everyday life. And it's been fun to practice because it really should be fun. It's just, it's a different engagement in the creation of your life, and it should be fun. Keep it light.
Isn't it delightful when all of a sudden you go, whoa, what was that?
And celebrating and being delighted is an important part of the program. And when you can high five. And
so we were like, so you're right, we did see that.
And then, and then you walk into the airplane, everybody's joyous because you're joyous. It comes with you. I do want to address though, that there are some things in your life and you know this by the tools, you know this by how you feel. Like some people struggle with manifesting money, big things. Okay. So, we have not addressed that. And I feel like the thing about that is sometimes that's your life journey. Oftentimes you can look in astrology and say, okay, well, that's a point that you're going to have to move through in your life. And I really think that if there's something that you're trying to manifest that you're just hitting a wall on, you need to go deeper into your programming, your subconscious. You need to hire people such as yourself and coaches or therapists, whoever, your inner child, whatever you need to do, because I've heard people say, I can't manifest any money. And no, I don't have lack thinking. And then I hear them talk and I'm like, and it's like, okay, well, they haven't shifted to see that yet. So having a trusted partner to help you, we are here to be together and to help one another and connect. And before you think, oh, coaching is a luxury, coaching is a necessity.
It has been for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. For me too. And so, and even coaches need coaches. That's what I was at this fundraiser and I was betting on a coach, which I won, by the way, because I had on my creation list that day, I want free gifts. And so I was donating to cancer and I got this coach and everybody's like, why would you want a coach? You're a coach. I'm like, I need a coach. I need a coach too. So we all need people. Yeah. So where you are maybe a little stuck or sticky in your life that you're not exactly getting to the joy or getting where you want, that's a time to sit back and say, let me get help. Yeah. And then set little goals and work with your partners on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's one of the great things that you have each other as well, right? So because you're attuned to listening and what you're hearing. And it's so subtle. Sometimes the language that we use tells more than we think.
For sure.
Though I really want this. And then you listen a little more, you're going, but you're telling me you want this. What you're saying is X, but what you're telling me you want is Y. So let's dig a little bit, or why do you want that? And, to your point way earlier, sometimes it is about wanting to feel safe or feel appreciated and valued, right? And those are unconscious motivators for us. Absolutely. So, and it's okay if we know our unconscious motivators. For me, I'm in the fear triad of the Enneagram. It's great for me to know if my initial reaction is to protect, I'm thinking, let's step back a minute and just see what's really happening here. Are you afraid to receive? What do you think? And what's real here? And what is just old garbage, someone else's story, but it takes awareness to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love that you said that, Sarah, because that tool that you use is able to uncover, and it's not in a scary way. It can uncover it. And then there's awareness. And then once there's awareness, then you can go, okay, I'm being triggered. Am I in this fear-based spot? Yeah. And I think our lives start there. So when you talk about the secret or something in law of attraction, where you wiggle your nose and think hard and get a bicycle, truly particularly if you can do that.
That was Bewitched.
Yeah.
Well, the nose part.
I did that. The nose. And I mean, they didn't do that, but they should have.
Okay. That would have been
they
much
should have
more
had us on.
interesting.
Where's Rhonda? She should have had us on there.
Absolutely. You should have been there.
That is awesome.
I digress. Continue on.
No, I was just going to say that, you can have those things, but it's once you have your bicycle, are we in a state of joy? Are you in success? Are you, so I feel like in our world, we dig deeper into having a whole authentic life that's filled with fun. Yes. Number one, fun, levity. This does not have to be hard or work. It should be fun. And then share it with people. And that's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, Holli has been talking for quite a while. I mean, you've been vision boarding for almost since I've known you. Mm-hmm. And your
doesn't every CPA do that? Every financial person?
This is my point, right?
I walk into a financial office and that's all. There's his vision board. No.
She didn't hang it at work.
It's graphs and pie charts and
Yes,
things like that.
exactly.
I kind of like those too, though.
I know you do. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeanna.
No, you're great. Listen,
we like
it. This is
we
perfect.
interrupt each other.
So, but I do really feel like what I noticed on Holli's vision board, and it's continued to grow and it's influenced me too, is like she said, it's less about the thing. So whether it's the bike or the kind of house, the exact picture of the house, the colors, it is about how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is, I have found if I just stay there in that spot, then I'm less committed to the exact way in which it's going to come, the things that need to come.
If you stay in the feeling state about
Correct.
what that represents to you, Jeanna.
Yes. And
so
then,
how do you stay there?
How do I feel? Am I there? Did I, as you continue to manifest things, it's less about the exact thing and more about your ultimate outcome, which is how you feel and joy. Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, because people will ask, well, this happened and it makes me feel this way, right? So, which is a choice to feel a certain way. But how, like when we're spinning, if you will, something happens and we immediately go into a knee-jerk response. Do you, either of you, have tips for how you can pull out and get back into a better feeling state?
Yes. So, so when you're spinning, you're not in a higher vibrational state.
Yeah.
And so you can't just go from spinning to, I'm happy. Okay. So nobody can ask you to do that. And so what we would say is, well, you could say what you want, Jeanna, but
I will.
But what I would say is, take a time out and do something you love, walk in nature. You're going to hear that. For me, just taking a break, a mindful break. We also believe in connecting with your heart, connecting with your body, and being okay. And, that little by little, it can change that spinning state and reach out and help. I'm a talker.
Yeah.
I like to call somebody and get help that way. And, I think it's natural for all of us to spin sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think just recognizing, okay, I'm in a spin. What's the feeling I have? Okay, let's get through that feeling. Let's not block it. Let's at least feel the feeling and then move forward in trying to change that. Because what happens if you're spinning, you're just gonna get more spinning, and then it becomes a pattern or groove, and then you become a spinning person. I think I always look back at the Peanuts cartoon and, Pigpen that had the cloud that followed him. Well, he clearly created that cloud and we all saw it follow him wherever he went. And then it becomes a part of him. You don't even think of Pigpen without the cloud. Right. So I think it's just important just to recognize it and be okay. Everything is as it should be, and just move forward.
Yeah. Well, nobody wants to hear this. And but I really feel like the spinning is a gift to really deal with something, go deeper, understand yourself in a way that allows you to evolve a little bit further. And I think anytime we get to a spot where there's a breakdown, a spinning or real big life challenge, it's, I think as hard as it is, I think as much as we can be really grateful for the opportunity, because it really is a gift. And then you just have to go to work. And, I think, like Holli said, getting really quiet. Why am I spinning? What's really bothering me about the situation that I need to own and understand and work through and do better with. And then absolutely having a friend or a group of people that you can counsel with to say, here's where I'm at, here's what I need to, and really get a path forward as quick as possible is, the quickest way to stop the spins. Nobody likes the spins.
No, because you feel out of control when you're doing that.
You do.
Right. Yeah. And even if you're aware of it, you're going, this is not where I want to be right now. Mm-hmm. So, but it is helpful to have a group. I shared this on a different podcast, but I was working, someone was starting to get really nervous about what they were going to go and have be filmed, a short. and she's super competent gal, but she started getting like, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, okay, we got to interrupt this. Right. But she's with a bunch of people she works with. And I said, hey, what makes you laugh? Right. She goes, what? I says, come on, let's not worry about that. You're not even up for a while. What makes you laugh? Cat videos. And I said, cat videos, right? I said, what else? And like rapid fire, she couldn't think about it. And then she's busting up laughing and everybody in the room's going, oh, and yeah, and what about that? And what about that? And I said, how do you feel? She goes, about what? And I said, about being interviewed. She goes, well, I could get nervous again. And I says, don't do it. Think about cat videos, right?
Cat videos.
I mean, it's like, because it made her laugh, right? And
you changed the frequency, her frequency in the most delicious way.
Yeah.
Well, it was, everybody got a joy out of it, right? Because they could see her watching these cat videos, and they know her well enough to know that she's over the top for cats, right? They go, that is so true.
Yeah. And it changes the elevation of the whole room. So it's again, like how you show up impacts everybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to jump back to your podcast just because as podcast hosts, I like to learn from others. So what has been, well, first, what was your impetus for starting the podcast?
Well, guys, she's going to complain about me because I hop in the car. Somebody had told us in New York City, we were chatting and they're like, you guys are funny. You guys should do a podcast.
We were giving advice. And I mean, we have the photo of it. We actually look like bossy podcaster.
Yes. Well,
yeah. And we had never even listened to a podcast.
No.
So we're like, really? Okay. Well, I don't even know what those are. So,
and then we noticed that we would drive with other people in the car, the commutes to the corporate gig, and people would be laughing. And then we would ham it up even more. We had an audience. And then one day I just got in the car and I had big eyes. I said, we need to do a podcast. And we had never even listened to a podcast. Now we're addicted, but, and I was like, we have things to say. We have, things to say.
Yeah. And I think, when we had a captive, really they were prisoners in the car with us, we would like pull them into like what are you going to do today? Like, what's the goal for today?
Yeah.
Like we would pull them into some of the kinds of conversations we would have by ourselves. And people would light up and they loved it. And then we'd talk on the way home, just like we would do. And I think we saw that there was a real curiosity and interest, and people had a ton of fun. And they would always say, you guys are so funny together. I mean, who would have thought the HR gal and the CFO were funny?
No.
And we just had a really good time.
Talking about jokes, universal jokes.
Exactly. So it was really fun. I mean, I think that was a big part of the impetus of the podcast too, was we have things to say. This is good for our personal development and growth. We both really have been yearning for something far more creative and far more in alignment with who we are at our core than the corporate work we do. And we pull it in as much as we can, but there's a gap there. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big part of it. And I think too, just really creating a conversation or a place for people to come and really partake in that playfulness and learning some practices and doing it in a fun, light way, that if they don't have a relationship like we have or friendships like we have, that they can seek that out and find it with our podcast. So that was really the goal.
Yeah, we wanted to be of service with something that is basically free. Anybody, can you imagine? I mean, that's the thing about podcasting. Yeah. It's like, I remember a day that you'd have to pay for everything, and it's so much is free. So we were like, well, we'd like to be of service and have it free, and we fund it ourselves. And we were like, we don't care if we change one life, we've done a good job. And so it was really out of service for people that are looking for, that are curious about life and maybe not very woo-woo, or maybe they don't even, honestly, most people don't know what LOA is, law of attraction. They're like, LOA? Okay. And we're like, yes, and so it's people that just are curious, that, are students and want a better way. And we thought we could be of service and make it fun and light and be part of a community for folks. So, and then of course we started having amazing guests, and we started learning. In the beginning, it was just her and I, and, for a long time, a year and a half, just her and I.
Yeah.
And now we haven't been able to squeeze in a solo episode. I see that you're still doing that, Sarah, which I think is important, by the way. I love that. And we're going to go back to doing that as we look at our catalog. And so anyway, it's just been a beautiful journey, meet amazing people like you, and we're moved, and hopefully our audience is moved too.
Yeah.
Well, I love the concept, and I like your approach to your podcast and the heart that you bring to it. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we wrap this up, because I realize how long we've been talking and I could continue on thinking, okay, that's just not fair. Fair to you.
Listen,
fair to
anytime you want us back, you just let us know, Sarah. And
perfect. Well, I think we'll set it up as a party and invite some other folks.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, but let me ask, you've got folks, and I know when you shared information with us, you have something that if folks subscribe to you, that you have a gift for them. Can you talk about that? And then we'll make sure to have all that in the show notes for you.
Yes.
Listen, I mean, Holli is the brains of the operation. And so this was her concept. I think it's fantastic. It's brilliant. Go for it, Holli.
Well, what we put together is what we call a badassery toolkit. And so what it is, and it's based on astrology. And so I do know astrology, and we did a by sign, and we were letting everybody have it so you can share it with your friends and family and kids. And you can look up all the signs. You get your alias. Everybody should have an alias. Beyonce has one, cool. Why can't we?
Okay. If she can be Sasha Fierce, we should have one.
should have something. Okay. So we just invite you. You can change it, but we invite that. And then what we really do, and it's based in astrology, is what are your superpowers? What could be your kryptonite? What is the thing that you just need to own? And every sign has that on there.
Okay, so here's the deal I'll make with you. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure I get that and take that. But then I'd be interested offline of have you guys done your Enneagrams? Do you know what you are?
Yes, I do.
What are you?
So I did it in 2017. So
it should stay the same. Your core number won't change.
I thought so too.
My problem is, this is where my head is. I'm a 7, but I'm also an 8 and a 3 within one number of each other. So 7 is top 23 points. And then it's.
Well, 8's your wing. So that makes perfect sense that you would be so tied in there.
And then 3 is like a few points behind that. So they're really tight. It's a tight.
And what about you, Jeanna?
Yeah, I did mine the same time. And I don't remember the third one, but 2 was number 1, but my 7 was 1 point or 2 points behind it. I think it was 1 point. And I read later that if you are a 2, and it didn't resonate, the 2 didn't resonate with me like as my core.
Primary core.
Right. Yeah, not at all. I mean, there are elements of it, but just in general, it didn't really resonate. So I read that because the 2 is, I think, the caregiver, something more like that females, if you're a female and your second number is 2, less than 2 from the 2, that you're probably just go with your second number, because the female typically will socially present in that way and answer in that way. So anyway, so I believe the 7 definitely resonates for me. So I'm a 7.
Well, and you talked about fear being a motivator for you, right? Conscious or unconscious, which fits for a 7.
Yep.
And the way to get out of that is to have some fun and do something distracting.
Listen, that's what
I'm distracting.
You're distracting. I know.
I'm a public service announcement for you. A PSA
during, my funner years back many years ago. They're coming back to your point, Sarah. But Holli used to call me down the hatch Hanenburg. Yeah. So, I can do some fun when you let me loose.
Okay, that's a whole other story I want to hear.
That is. Okay, so Sarah, what's your astrological sun?
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Okay, yes.
I like it too, once I knew a little bit more. I mean, I don't know a lot, but I know enough that people go, I'm kind of scared of you. I'm thinking, okay.
No, actually, you're the deepest feeler, the deepest thinker. I mean, that you'll walk in a room, you can feel the energy. You're highly intuitive, and it could be something that, you shied away from early in life, but that you embrace now. But I would be interested in your moon and your rising sign too, because your rising is where your soul's going. And so you should, if you haven't looked into that yet, know that you got to know the time of your birth. So the exact time, because it changes within 5 minutes.
And location. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know the location. I'll have to look at my birth certificate to see
It's
the
a
time.
big deal.
I know the day of the week, but I don't.
I'll bet you probably it's an air sign, which is like Aquarius, Libra, and it's one of these Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you were Geminis, and I'm
Geminis,
forgetting Gemini. Because you're the way you present yourself and talk, and your mind,
your commitment to communication and talking, and
so that's usually an air sign. So it'd be interesting next time we do an astrology reading on you.
I would love to do astrology because I think people poo-poo it, and I've had some readings that have been super powerful in my life, and so I would love to do that, ladies. So let's just plan another one, but it'll be all around astrology.
That sounds perfect.
Perfect.
All right. I'll work it out with you on the back end.
Okay.
With that, I want to thank you both so much for being on the podcast, also for bringing so much joy into the world daily. And I just had a blast. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank
So
you so
wonderful.
much. Thank you for having us. It was an honor to be here with you today.
Truly.
And we loved meeting you. We love your podcast.
Yes.
And thank you so much.
Brilliant host. Thank you. It was great.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic vision coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Until next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.